Hey VW lovers, yet another new project in at Vintage Classic Specialist. This one has a really great story. I love this car. This car is a 1964 Volkswagen Beetle that is still owned by the original family. And there's some really interesting stuff about this car. One thing that struck me when I first talked to the owner is that the car has been parked since 1974. So this car was literally parked when it was a 10-year-old car. What happened was back in 1974 is there was an engine fire apparently, and I guess it sounds like the fire department came and they sprayed down the car and put the fire out, but it caused I guess from the rear window being hot and getting hit with the water, it basically caused the rear window to explode and some other kind of damage. You know, obviously it's better than letting it burn, but yeah, the car took some damage when the fire happened and was subsequently extinguished. So yeah, the car was basically parked in 1974 and has sat ever since. And again, the car is still owned by the original family. So the man that has the car now, who brought it in, was essentially a kid when this car was bought new, and he's an adult now. And the car has been sitting in his mom's garage for almost 50 years, and he finally decided to go ahead and try and recommission the car. So there's some things that we're still gonna be discussing, whether or not we want to preserve the original paint or do a full respray of the car or not. So yeah, some details like that to work out, but for sure the car needs a lot of work to again become a running, driving car. Although you can see that, other than where you can tell there was a fire here on the driver's side of the rear engine, and I'm not sure what's going on with this fender back here. I can't imagine it was involved in the fire, but I think there was actually an accident that explains this discoloration here. But the car is super straight, super solid, Southern California car, all its life. The original miles on this car, and I don't want to misquote it, are, let's see, 48,195 original miles on this car. Again, the car was only 10 years old when it was parked. The car was the family's daily driver, so the car was driven a fair amount, nearly 50,000 miles in 10 years. So it's about 5,000 miles a year. Probably mostly local. So yeah, I mean it was driven for sure. So the car needs a complete interior, as you can see. Another feature of the car that I didn't point out earlier was it is a sunroof car, so it's a 64. This was the first year for the metal sunroof. This is actually an early 64. I think the production date the owner stated was October of 63. So again, that makes it a pretty early, only a couple months into the 64 production year. But yeah, super straight car. The car was involved in one pretty bad accident, although from the crawling around that I've done in the car so far, you can't really tell. There are some signs of the respray that happened, but it's really not bad. So back, and I don't remember the year, it was at least a few years before the car had the engine fire. So I think it was maybe more like late 60s. The car was actually T-boned, and the father and the man, the current owner, who was a child at the time, and his sister were in the car. They got T-boned, and they got injured pretty bad. The father, I believe, had a ruptured spleen. The sister, I think, had a broken limb. I don't remember. I think it might have been an arm. The boy at the time, who's the current man who owns it, I think he said he got lucky and got out sort of uninjured. But the story is that the mom was a nurse, and I think she had just ended her shift and was driving home and literally passed the scene of this accident involving her family. So I can't imagine the trauma associated with that. But yeah, so a lot of family history with this car, and so yeah, the current owner is super excited to get this thing going again, and that's why he brought it in. He found us and wanted to bring the car in and let us, you know, essentially recommission it. There's some details I mentioned earlier that we need to iron out still, whether we're going to do kind of the minimal sort of preservation to get the car back on the road. So needless to say, we need to go through the brakes. The motor hasn't been run in nearly 50 years, so there's some things to do there. We'll have to go through all the fuel lines, the brake lines. The car really needs a complete new interior, so we'll do that. And then above and beyond that, yeah, it's sort of up to the owner whether he wants to completely respray the car. Again, the body needs pretty minimal body work, actually. It's let's go ahead and pop this thing open here so you can see here that at least the front of the car super straight, so it hasn't at least been in a front end accident. Again, the car apparently was T-boned. I don't know the extent of the damage there. It was enough to where the occupants were hurt pretty seriously, but you can't really tell by looking at the car. So whoever repaired it did a pretty nice job. Again, I have a feeling that this fender and the rust and so on it is probably explained by the that accident, and it was replaced and repainted. If you look really close, you can kind of see some signs of the respray here. I believe that's what we're looking at with this kind of discoloration. But other than that, yeah, very straight car. I sort of crawled around underneath it. No signs of rust at all. It's about as dry as you can get for a car of this age. Somebody at some point replaced the front seats or reupholstered them. I think he said they replaced them. I haven't actually looked at them closely enough to tell if they're the correct seat frame for this car or not, but you know, those things are not very difficult to take care of. The steering wheel, I believe, is not correct for this car. I think this is out of a year or two later car. And I think, as I mentioned earlier, the headliner is gone. I think that's sort of was due to the fire when they put it out and got ruined. The motor on this car, let's pop this open real quick here. So the motor looks pretty nice. You know, I was surprised when he said that that this was actually the original motor, because I was expecting the motor to be pretty crispy looking. So I think the fire must have been pretty isolated to this side of the engine compartment here, because at least I couldn't really see much of a sign here of a fire anywhere else. If you look closely at this wiring connector here, you can definitely see signs of fire damage where this is melted. But other than that, yeah, I was pleasantly surprised. I was expecting the motor to look like a motor that had been torched, and it's actually in remarkably good shape. So we'll go through the motor, probably do a compression check, you know, go ahead and change the oil and look for any trash in the oil and stuff like that. But again, with only 48,000 miles on it, you know, assuming they did maintenance even semi-regularly, I'm expecting the motor to be in pretty good shape. So we may not need to, and again, unless the owner really wants to go all the way with this, then, you know, I think the motor will probably just kind of clean it up, check it out, get it started and running after we go through the carb and so on like that, and leave it pretty much how it is as one option. But again, we have to discuss that and see exactly what his goals are for the car. Let's take a look under the car real quick here and see how solid this car is. So yeah, super solid pans, no real sign of rust. Even the sort of dreaded battery area, which is usually toast on these things, I don't see anything going on there. The whole underside of the car is pretty similarly nice. It's not all bent up either. You know, some people over the years usually jack these cars up by the middle of the pan and they're all pushed in and stuff. I didn't really see anything like that on this one at all. The other thing kind of neat that I noticed on the car is, if you see, I'm not sure if you can see that on here or not,
is the car at some point had a camber compensator on it. Let's see, sorry. See that little thing hanging down right there by the tip of the light? That is the pivot point for a camber compensator, and the little bent piece of metal that runs from side to side there to there, that's actually the mount for it. So yeah, it's kind of interesting that at some point somebody had put a camber compensator on this, which for those people who don't know, for a stock height Volkswagen, that it's kind of like the opposite of a sway bar in that it reduces the rear roll stiffness. It makes the car less likely to roll over, as some Beetles, stock height Beetles, are known to do. If you take a corner too fast, then the wheel actually can kind of tuck under and the car can flip easier than you might suspect that it would. So yeah, kind of a neat part of this car's history is that at some point somebody had a camber compensator on it, which was like an aftermarket handling and safety add-on. So there you go. Really neat car, really excited, really thankful to the owner for trusting us with this family gem of theirs, and to recommission it one way or the other, whether it ends up more or less looking like a slightly cleaned up version with this with the interior redone and obviously the safety and the motor, or if he wants it to basically look like a brand new 64 Beetle. So either way, we can accommodate what they want and anything in between, frankly. So yeah, this should be a fun one. Looking forward to it, and I'll try and do updates as we make progress. So thanks for watching, and if you haven't already, please subscribe to our channel. Kind of helps us out, and also if you like the video, please click like. Thank you.